BookTube, and welcome to another episode of Last Week in BookTube, where we tell you everything you need to know to stay in the know and rate the BookTube super hotties in alphabetical order. Actually, no. I'm just going to talk about some BookTube videos that I liked in the last week. I guess I'll dispense with jazzy introductions from here on in. It's kind of boring in this end of the pool. But what this series is, for those who might be new to the channel, is just a survey of some videos that I watched last week that I really liked. It's not meant to be comprehensive at all. It's not meant to be exclusive. There was a whole bunch of stuff that I liked and don't include here, and that happens every week. Just some highlights here and there that I thought we'd talk about. Starting with general things. One of the biggest of which was the thing that defined BookTube last week, which was April wrap-ups and May TBRs, wall to wall, everywhere, hundreds of them. But peeking out here and there, like the first crocuses of spring, were videos on other subjects, videos that actually weren't April wrap-ups and May TBRs. One of which was a big collaborative reading event called Book Buddy-a-thon that nobody told me about and nobody invited me to. Looks like a lot of fun. But the biggest thing, it isn't really BookTube. In fact, I haven't actually seen any responses to it. It was in the book world. Johanna Trollop, the novelist Johanna Trollop, called out J.K. Rowling on her social media habits, on her social media omnipresence, and referred a little bit flat-footedly, but with Trollopian accuracy, to J.K. Rowling's incredible egomania. Rowling, as far as I know, has not responded, but her fans went apoplectic, as of course, you know, they will when St. Mary Magdalene, when a shrine is attacked. And I thought the whole thing was kind of funny, because Johanna Trollop is very much of an older generation of British writers. She's never going to be a billionaire, and despite her incredible, you know, genetic heritage as far as a writer goes. And her books are solid, and they're adult, and they're thoughtful. They're not anything like the Harry Potter books. They bear a lot in common with A Casual Vacancy, but for her to go after, she admits that she knows nothing about social media, and for her to go after J.K. Rowling for constantly tweeting to her fans was kind of interesting. It set off a contrast between the two of them. Of course, most of my sympathies are with Johanna Trollop, because she isn't forever going on about to her readers about how they should read her books. That aspect of J.K. Rowling drives me nuts. Once a book is out in the world and being read by other people, its author is just another reader and has no say of any greater importance than anybody else in anything about it, and ought to really keep their yap shut. So, you know, years ago when she outed Dumbledore, well, who says? You say he's gay. I say he's not. We're on equal standing. I can look at your wretched, mildewy text and prove that he isn't. You say that he is because you think it. So what? It's because your name on the book makes no difference whatsoever. The latest offense in that direction, the thing that just makes me, every time she makes a pronouncement like this, I just wish that she would cancel her social media accounts and get back to writing. Do what she's supposed to do instead of, but the latest one was on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of the release of a movie. She apologized to her fans for killing off one of her characters. Not because the plot of the final book didn't demand it, not because it didn't make sense in terms of that plot. In terms of the plot, it actually does make sense. One of the few things in the Harry Potter books that does make sense. No, she apologized because the actor who played him in the movie turned out to be popular and died unexpectedly. Utterly ridiculous. What is a writer doing? Flailing around like this and giving an entire generation of aspiring writers a whole host of completely wrong-headed ideas of what it means to write in the public sphere. So I, as a gesture of solidarity, I immediately ordered the latest novel by Johanna Trollop. Because I have never seen, I can't remember the last time I saw a novel of hers for sale in America. Certainly, I have never seen one at any book room of any newspaper I've ever been to, nor have I ever been solicited for one or seen one in the mail. Anyway, it's not a BookTube thing, but I thought it was fascinating when these two authors face off. I wonder if J.K. Rowling will respond. I have a suspicion that she won't, and that's probably good, because, probably in her mind she's thinking, well, I hope in her mind she's thinking, my least utterance commands an entire continent's population of people to instantaneous and sometimes uncontrolled agreement. And this is a mid-list author, a respected mid-list author who's never going to have my prominence in a million years. She could set herself on fire outside of Parliament. She would still be the second headline after the least thing that J.K. Rowling did that day. Shop for groceries. Oh, and also Johanna Trollop immolated herself. I'm hoping that her silence is for that reason, that she'd rather go after blowhards and bigots, and good for her, than punch back at an old-fashioned British novelist who doesn't understand her constant address to her readers. But anyway, that was sort of the general thing that fascinated me. But then we move on to reviews. I like to talk a little about reviews in this feature, because I watch a lot of them and I love them. And there were quite a few that I liked. There was a One Book One review reviewed Starflight by Melissa Landers. It's not a novel that I've read, but I really liked the review. Kelly's Book Spill did She Who Was by Stormy Smith. And did a really good job. And has a really good channel. These are all, as usual, recommendations for channels as well as recommendations for videos. WhatKamilReads reviewed Judas, the latest novel by Amos Oz. He found a lot more interesting stuff to say about it than I did. I actually was slated to review it and couldn't come up with two things to say about it. The whole thing seemed completely phoned into me. So I was glad to watch a video in which a more perceptive fiction reader went at it. That's great. And same thing with Kitty G. She did a review of China Miéville's Perdido Street Station, which is a novel that I absolutely love. And yet, her review showed me things that I hadn't seen. This one was really, really good. And then the last two reviews that I want to mention got me going. One in a positive way and one in a negative way. Rachel Mauro on her channel, which I don't understand. I don't think she even has triple digits for subscribers, and I don't understand that. But maybe I'll keep plugging her until she does. She did a review of a couple of books, and in the course of that review, she defended the concept of connected short stories. A book that is a series of thematically connected short stories, but the short stories are supposed to stand on their own. And some of you might remember if you've studied my 1,150 videos, you might remember that I have never liked interconnected short stories. They're all the rage now for the Brooklyn crowd, and I've never liked them because they've always struck me as lazy. As, well, this aspect of your story or your characters is appealing to you on a Monday, so you write that aspect, and rather than bother to work it into a larger narrative, you just drop it when it stops interesting you and go on to some other aspect of your characters or your narrative. And Rachel pointed out that might be unfair as a characterization, that interconnected short stories where the focus shifts and some people move forward into the foreground and then into the background and aren't always consistent in the perceptions of other characters is actually truer to life than a straightforward, imperially controlled narrative. And I'm not 100% sure that I agree with that, but I love thinking about it. That was wonderful. And then the one that didn't work so well, Insomniac continued his fantastic series, Are We Not Entertained? Where he and a bunch of people who don't include me pick a book and sort of kick it around. And the one they picked this time around was The Road by Cormac McCarthy, and it ended up he did a great video on it. I wholeheartedly urge you to watch it, especially if you're thinking about reading the book. because whether his video might tip you one way or the other, but it will tip you in one direction or another. And in the course of the video, I'm going to have a long talk with the boy. It's infuriating. Of course, I can't stand The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Can't stand it. In fact, of all the wretched, fly-blown, idiotic pieces of wet-wash fiction this monstrously overrated writer has ever produced, it might actually be my least favorite, because it's not just inept in his usual genre of, you know, tough as nails, Elmore Leonard type American West He-Man type stuff. It's also wretched in a borrowed genre, in post-apocalyptic genre. So it starts to verge into Margaret Atwood level of wretched, which is, well, that's when you're getting into the big leagues of an author who has no effing clue what they're doing. And in the course of the video, while he's praising things that ought to be condemned, the very same things that ought to be condemned, I think I got a glimpse of why. And it was, at one point he mentions in his video that it struck him as one of the best evocations of what a post-apocalyptic world would really be like. He mentioned things like the Hunger Games, where the post-apocalyptic world still seems like it's fun to live in. And he gets the impression that a real post-apocalyptic world wouldn't be like that. And that's a legitimate criticism of things like Hunger Games, but it immediately raised in my mind the question I would ask him, if I had him in front of me, the question I would ask him, I won't say interrogate, would be, okay, there are 15 classics, absolute, uncontested classics of post-apocalyptic fiction. Have you read any of them? Or are you judging this thing, this monstrosity, this idiotic monstrosity, where all of a sudden there are regimented groups of cannibals wearing matching Converse All-Stars, like that makes any sense at all? Like there's any rationale to it at all? The man is shepherding this boy across a wasteland because he contains the light. And all he's waiting for is to find somebody who also has the light so he can hand the boy off to them because he himself is dying. But what is the light? No idea. And who are these people? No idea. And what happened to the world? No idea. And what you know, if this guy can wander forever with no provisions whatsoever, then how is a regiment of cannibals allowed to live? What are they eating? Rabbits? And so on and so forth. Idiotic idea after idiotic idea trotted out just because Cormac McCarthy, who himself has never read a post-apocalyptic novel, not one, decided to, you know, be interesting to think about. I don't know. I'm just sort of showing up here. But don't take my word for it. Actually, do take my word for it. But in addition to taking my word for it, you should go and watch his video and see what you think. See what it makes you think. And that was it. That was it for reviews. I'm probably going to get an earful from him, but I mean it in a loving way. Seeing the video made me want to ask what I often want to ask in book review videos, or even book reviews, published book reviews. When somebody says, this is the best example of X that I know of, my immediate question, whether it's Roman history or romantic poetry or horror fiction, is, well, okay, back that up a little. The best example of X that you know of, okay, how many other examples of X do you know of? But anyway, we can move on. I want to wrap up with a few miscellaneous things. Starting with a bit of a disgrace, BookTube. I'm sure that some of you have noticed, with relief, I assume, the absence of that horrid Adam person from Momentomori in your video feed. And if you've seen him on Instagram, you know why he's gone. Because he's enjoying himself. His Instagram feed is full of one revolting picture after another of him and a bunch of other beautiful people with bronzed skin in bright sunlight, having a wonderful time eating exotic food in Bangkok. I think we would all agree when I say that's not how we do things at BookTube. We are We are pallid complexions. We are sad. We are overwrought with all the books we have to read. We're not out there enjoying ourselves in picture postcard locations. He'll be back, and you know what he'll look like. You know, he'll have the gold earring, and he'll be all smiles, and he'll have all sorts of stamps on his luggage. But it wasn't all bad. For instance, there were in this little BookTube thing that I like to pay attention to, which is thumbnails. It fascinates me because I don't control my own thumbnails. I just pick one, or most often I just let YouTube pick one. I don't know how to make a thumbnail. And there were 2 thumbnails last week that were superb. One was from Alex at View from the Bar, and the other, believe it or not, was from Giselle at the Rhodes vlog. And both of them were downright creepy. I'll leave a link down below and you go and look at them, but yeah, be forewarned. They're very scary thumbnails, but the videos themselves were both wonderful. And if we're going to have a winner for BookTube, I sometimes do that, and I don't mean it at all to be discounting the other videos, but if we're going to have a winner, I'm afraid it's going to be another example of something we've seen before. Valerie at Valereads did a video called "My Least Favorite Thing About BookTube," and it's vicious and it's wonderful. and you know, well, when you see it, you'll know what I mean. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I have to think that vicious videos like this about some of the inanities that have characterized some aspects of BookTube for the last 5 years, I have to think that these videos occurring now with greater frequency is a healthy sign. I have to think that it's a sign of a growing spurt, and that's great. So go and watch it and have a chuckle, and then once you're done chuckling about it, make a mental note never to do any of the things that are being satirized. This is a very simple process. It's not hard to do. And then the last thing I want to wrap up with here, now that I've alienated everyone, is an extracurricular thing, something that isn't quite BookTube, although it is still book-related. And it's an oldie but a goodie. Another one that the thing that I've loved, I love going back to it periodically and watching it. And you never know with videos like this, because YouTube is such a profusion. Hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage uploaded every minute for years. So I want to make sure, some of you might have missed this. I want to make sure you saw it. It's Jim Meskimen, and it's he does a soliloquy from Shakespeare with a cast that you couldn't pay to assemble. He does impressions, and each couple of lines is a different person, and it has to be seen to be believed. So I'll leave a video down below. But if he could do an entire Shakespeare play like that, it would kill him, of course. But I would pay to hear it. And that's it. That was last week in BookTube. I don't think there are any bodies left standing, just like in Shakespeare. I'll see you soon. BookTube will be back to book chat in no time. Thank you.